Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome. My name is Monica and today I wanted to share my current top 10 favorite palettes for fall. I know technically fall doesn't start for like another couple of weeks, but it's always fall in my heart. And they're just a few favorite palettes in my collection that just instantly bring me to fall no matter what time of year it is. A few of these palettes are new from the past few months, and then some of them are old favorites that have been in my favorite fall videos for quite a few years. So we've got a good mixture. We've got some higher end palettes, some drugstore palettes, so let's jump in. Let's start with some of the newer palettes to my collection. The first one was the collab between Lethal Cosmetics and Theresa is Dead. This is the Lethal is Dead palette. And honestly, it's a nice bright fall palette to me. I love the greens in here. I actually did a whole video with a couple of looks and everything. If you missed it, I'll throw it up in the cards. But I love this palette, and it's now going to be one of my go-to favorite fall palettes. Next, I have another collab palette that took a while to get to me, but ultimately, I'm glad I have the palette because it is like a perfect spooky fall, just anytime palette. And it's the Beautbean and Shroud collab. It's Freakin Bats palette, and this palette is just stunning. I also did a video about this one. If you guys want to catch that, I'll throw it up on the cards. But this one, I feel like these two palettes actually work really well together. Let me get it open. I feel like they complement each other pretty nicely. You've got some nice grungy tones over here, and then this is a bit brighter, but still within kind of the same color family. But I really like the It's Freakin Bats palette. The color selections here, stunning. I love what was chosen to be matte versus what was chosen to be shimmers, and then the shades themselves, they're pigmented, they're beautiful. It's become one of my favorite palettes. Next, I have a palette from an indie brand I had recently found out about, and honestly, this is just so creative. I love everything about this palette. This is from Necromancy Cosmetica, which is a brand based out of Puerto Rico, and this is the Gothic romance palette. As you can see, it actually is shaped to look like a little book, and then you pull it out of the actual packaging. One of these sides pops off as a little mirror. And then you've got the side that looks like book pages, and then you open it up, and this is what the palette looks like. The color story, it gives me slightly brighter subculture vibes, and I love the way that this is just set up. I love the packaging design, the back. It's a very, very beautiful design here. And I love how creative it is, and I love that it folds up to be like a book. Now, I kind of want, because I have my eyeshadow palette bookshelf, I kind of want a whole shelf of palettes that look like books. Oh my god, I love it. But these shades, they are pigmented, they're beautiful. Part of me wishes that it was slightly bigger, but honestly, it's 8 shades? I think it's a decent amount of shades for a palette. But this, the book, everything just screams fall to me. And then you can just put it right back into its little packaging. And I've had this on display in my background for quite a bit. I just redid parts of my background. So I got a new little haunted house up there, some trees. I moved some things around. So I think in this shelf right here, I'm going to put some of my other favorite palettes, including this one. Okay, so moving on to a few older palettes that are still some of my favorites. The first is from Midas Cosmetics, and this is the Pumpkin Spice Latte Quad. This is actually what I'm wearing on my eyes today, except for the shimmer that's all over my lid. That's actually from a palette not on this list, but it's just I needed a nice bright orange shimmer. But the rest of the palette I'm not a huge fan of. Anyway, back to this. This is the best pumpkin spice palette I think has ever been made. Because when people, and by people I really mean Too Faced, come out with a pumpkin spice palette, it's basically just neutrals. But this is actually pumpkin spice. I love the shades in here. They're beautiful, they're pigmented, they blend like a dream. The only thing I kind of wish, if this had been like a quint, I just want a nice light, bright orange shimmer so I could put it all over my lid kind of like I have today. But other than that, this is a perfect palette and I love it. Jumping right there to another Midas Cosmetics palette. This is the Green Tea Macchiato palette. And while less pumpkin spicy, this is just a beautiful fall palette. Look at these grungy tones. I love this green. It is the perfect green for a deep, luscious lower lash line. It's beautiful. I love this bronze. I've actually pulled out this bronze to use with other palettes, like my Lila Pan That palette, because it's just a beautiful lid color. I love it. Personally, I haven't been reaching for these two shades on the top, the mattes, as much because they're kind of similar to what I have in my Pan That palette, but overall, this is a beautiful quad, and I love it. Oh no, one of the shades just almost popped out, so I'm gonna be, and there it goes. So I'm gonna have to hot glue that in there. I was actually gonna pull out my Naked 2 palette after this video because I need to hot glue some shades back into that palette, so I'm gonna do the same thing here because it looks like the glue just kind of popped off. But I've had this for well over a year, and this is the first time I've seen that happen, so If you have them, be careful, but thankfully nothing broke, so I'm just going to glue it back in. Next, we have, I think, probably one of my favorite palettes from e.l.f. And this is one of the original Mad for Matte palettes. This is the Mad for Matte 2 palette. And so this is an entirely matte palette. Personally, since I don't like all matte looks, to me this is kind of a companion palette. But this is like every matte shade you would need for fall. You've got some beautiful like neutrals in here. You got a nice purple, you got some light oranges, you got a black, you got a brown. It's you know, very neutral, but I think this, you know, it's affordable and it's perfect for fall. And I've had it for years. I think I've decluttered just about every other e.l.f. palette I've had in this packaging, the 10 pan palettes, except for this one, because it's just so useful and the shades are really, really nice. Some of the lighter shades you do have to build up a little bit, but honestly, not bad for such an affordable palette. All right, so this is a palette, a limited edition palette that I am so glad that I got, and I'm going to keep it forever, but it's like the perfect, literally the perfect fall palette. And that is the Good Sport palette from Colourpop. This, just everything about this palette is beautiful. I love these shades. I've actually, you know, I've gone through phases where like I'm afraid to use this palette too much because I don't want to use it up, because I feel like this is a palette where I could accidentally like hit pan without even meaning to, you know? The shades are beautiful. I love the mixtures here. You got some grungy tones over here. You got a nice bright yellow. You've got purples in here. You've got a green. This green shimmer is stunning. Along with the shade right up here called, what's that shade called? Rookie. That's a beautiful shade too. Just every part of this palette I love. I hate that this is limited edition and they have not brought this back, because this is the only, other than their first original Yes Please palette, this is the only Colourpop palette that I am like obsessed with. Absolutely obsessed with. I think they did an amazing job here, and I'm upset that they have not done anything, you know, remarkably similar to it or brought this back since. All right, next we have a palette from Lunatick Cosmetic Labs, and this is the Elvira palette. So not only is the packaging stunning, I mean, look at the mirror, look at the little pop-ups, beautiful. The color story, beautiful. You got a black, you got a white, you got a red, you have a nice peachy kind of blush here in the middle, a blue, and like a maroon shimmer. Looking at it right off the bat, you're just like, okay, it's a little disjointed, what am I gonna do here? But you get some beautiful looks here. And the utility of having just like a plain black and a plain white shadow. I've brought this palette out, A, to use this as a blush, because it is a really, really pretty blush, but B, because you can like mix these together, and you're not stuck with just the shades you see here. But also, I mean, the packaging is just stunning. This is really like a collector's piece. And I got this on sale too. I think originally it's around $20-something. I bought this when Lunatick Cosmetic Labs on their website had a sale, and they got it for around $10. So not bad. Though I think now it's discontinued, which is disappointing because it's such an awesome palette. Can you see I was trying to like do a similar hair design? Anyway, I was really going to try a bun with like some of the face framing pieces, and I think it came out not bad. All right, next, I know I just dumped on Too Faced not too long ago, but at least, you know, here, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? And Too Faced came out with an amazing palette in the peach, the Sweet Peach palette, because it is an amazing palette. This is one of the palettes where I've hit pan in shades without even trying, because I love using this palette so much. This is just a perfect all-around fall palette, not necessarily like a pumpkin spicy or like a spooky palette, but just like the tones in here, the shades, the quality of the shades. This is like old school Too Faced too, where, you know, they actually had decent eyeshadows. But I love this palette. Though you've got pinks, you've got purples, you've got some neutrals in here, you've got some beautiful greens down here. The shade Luscious is just like a beautiful shade that I'm afraid to keep using now because I have so much pan in it, and I think I'm gonna use it up at some point. One of my absolute favorite looks that I found from a YouTube tutorial was using this palette, and I actually almost panned it, but I didn't want to use it up. But the tutorial, unfortunately, it's no longer on YouTube. The channel I used to love, Thrifty Beauty, it looks like she like either privated or deleted all of her videos except for the ones that like kind of went semi-viral. So that tutorial is no longer on YouTube, and I'm kicking myself for not saving it because it was one of my favorite YouTube videos. It really reminded me of old school YouTube and tutorials that I loved, and I still do that look. It is an amazing look, and I love it so much. So this is a great fall palette, and honestly I think this might be like a great beginner fall palette too, because it's not super bright, super in your face. You've got a lot of neutrals in here, but you've got some pops of color you could start to incorporate, start to work with, and it's beautiful. I think this is a really great palette, and I'm glad that it's still available because I think it was originally limited edition and they brought it full time. This is one of the best, if not the best, Too Faced palette. All right, and last but certainly not least, we had to go with my grungy fall favorite palette. This is the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. And this, I did rearrange mine, so it's going to look different than if you buy it right off the shelf. But this is beautiful. It is my grungy rainbow dream, and it is perfect for fall, perfect for winter. I love everything about this palette. I do think you've got a little bit of repeats in the neutrals, but I mean, overall, the color story, it's beautiful. It's stunning. I like the smaller palette, like the smaller pan sizes. I like the color story here. I like that it's the same Natasha Denona formula. That is one great thing I like about Natasha versus some other higher end brands, is that across the different sizes, like the minis versus the big, you know, $200 something palettes, it's the same eyeshadow formula. I will say, I have seen other higher end brands use a different eyeshadow formula for their affordable palettes versus their, you know, standard palettes. That's not the case with Natasha. So I've seen the same quality throughout every size of her palettes, except for a midi, because I just bought myself a midi for the very first time. So I'm going to thoroughly test that out. But from what I've seen across literally every other size of palette that she and her brand offers, same quality, same formula throughout. And it's just here. I love this. I'm so glad that I bought this. I think this was supposed to be limited edition for last holiday. I don't know if it's still available. I know a few months ago I saw it was still available through her website directly, but it's amazing, and I'm glad I got it. So there we have it. Those are my current top 10 favorite palettes for fall that I cannot wait to dig into. I can't wait for just cold weather, sweaters. I've bought like hoodies and like warmer clothes, and I thrive. I thrive in the fall. The fall and the winter are my seasons. They just are. Let me know down below what's your favorite fall palette, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Bye.